Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my recap, breakdown, and review of the final episode of HBO Max's Generation Season 1 finale, which was titled V-Day. And listen, this episode was literally shot for shot almost for the pilot episode, so it's a great way to end the show as you begin the show. So we're going to break down all the different truths, the lies, the reveals, who was Chester talking to at the end of the episode. We're going to break it all down to spoil the discussion, but before we do so, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, well, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing, and while you're at it, make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you can get the alert from when I drop new content. If you all enjoyed this review of the final episode of Season 1 of Generation, well, make sure to give the video a thumbs up. Share this video. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate the support. And in the comments below, let's talk about this finale. Let's talk about the first part, the second part. Which part did you enjoy more? What was your favorite episode? And what would you like to see in a season 2 for this show? Let's discuss it all in the comments below. So just initial thoughts. I just got done watching the episode, and this may be my favorite episode of the show so far. And there's been some really good episodes in this first and second part of the show, but this episode again was almost not shot for shot, but it was very reminiscent to the pilot episode. We're following this character bumps to this character, then we go to their story, we see, and it just kind of wraps up perfectly, because again, if we remember the pilot episode and how everything feels so disjointed, some characters didn't really trust one another, know one another, but as we kind of go to 16 episodes later, their friendships that have been built, the trust has been built, to see things kind of go not the way people wanted to go, and then to wrap up with Chester, who has been obviously I would say the lead of the show, starting off alone, having friends, but then being alone by the end of the episode, but then having someone walk up to him at the end. We'll talk about who I think that is, but again, I thought this is just a really good episode. It wraps up everyone's storyline pretty satisfactory for me, except for Riley. Is she going to Rio? Is she not going to Rio? What's going to happen with her and Greta? And there's obviously still questions to be answered for a future season potentially, but I thought that nonetheless this really gave me what I was hoping for to end this first season and hopefully lead into a second season in the next year or so. So let me know your initial thoughts, and if you think this was a really good, satisfying finale. Let's talk about it in the comments. So let's get into the recap as the episode opens up with our crew on a party bus. They finally arrive to the school dance, only to just turn right back around and go and do the party that Riley has set up. But I'm thinking to myself, as the episode's opening up, everyone seems to be okay, right? What's going on with Bo and Chester after that photo shoot? What's going on with obviously Naomi and Delilah and Cooper? So I'm just like, I know they're teenagers and normally they can forget things and move on and pretend like things aren't happening, but like, I need some resolution, and we get that in this episode because the truth comes out, all thanks to Ariana. But cut to the adults, Mark and Megan, at a very awkward dinner. They're still having beef with one another, as Megan is obviously upset because she knows she learned the truth about Nate pretending to be in a relationship with Chester, and Mark seemed to have known the whole time, and that obviously is upsetting her. And we'll talk about them and the break that they're going to be taking. Again, I'm still in the camp to believe that Mark is closeted and he's bisexual or potentially gay, and we're going to probably learn that next season, but they take a break, and we'll talk about that towards the end. But we see that we cut to the party, they go to the freezer, and their whole spell has been broken because the freezer broke. So I think that kind of speaks into, again, Ariana being a witch and her putting her little spells on the candy and the truth. Again, this episode was a lot about the truth, and there's a lot of truths that comes out in this episode. We cut back to, again, I mentioned, okay, what's going on with Chester and Bo? Well, we find out as Bo admits to Chester that he really feels like he doesn't understand why Chester is into him, and he almost feels like Chester's just into him because he's so into Chester. So it's almost just like Chester just loves the idea that someone loves him so much and it's not being reciprocated in a certain sense, right? Which is, I feel so bad for Chester because, again, he starts off this season, as he even says in this moment, he's always happy and he has this, nice outfits that he wears. He seems to be the person to go to that has everything figured out. But as we know in the show, he doesn't have everything figured out. He feels alone at times, and it's just, I feel bad for the character. But also, too, if you are Bo, you have to have some sense of, like, there's that insecurity, and we can all relate to this, whether we're teenagers or adults, where it's just like, this person almost seems too good to be true for me. They're bigger than life. They're the life of the parties, and we're just like polar opposites. Are we really going to work things out? So you can kind of understand, at least I can kind of understand where Bo is coming from, but at the same time can understand where Chester's coming from. Yeah, I live this bigger than life type of lifestyle, but at the same time, I'm still someone that desires love and comfort, and even though polar opposites can sometimes attract to one another. So I can understand where both characters are coming from in that moment, but Bo wants to end things, essentially, right? And we'll see where all that goes. But I've been saying for weeks that I always saw Chester and Nathan being together, and we kind of get that in this episode. But we'll see what comes of who that person was at the end of this episode. But cut back to Nate. He even tries to talk to Bo and tells him that Chester's really himself when he's around him. But that doesn't change Bo's mind as his dad comes to pick him up. So we'll see if Bo is that guy at the rooftop at the end of this episode. But we see everyone taking the truth chocolate that Ariana made. And again, the truth comes out for everyone this episode. Cooper finally tells Delilah that he doesn't want to date Naomi and how amazing she is. So we all knew that Cooper was more into Delilah than he was, Naomi. But the truth comes out for that character. But we cut in between. This is where I said this episode, it only dawned on me in this moment when they were at the party, like, first off, this is the same party. This is, obviously Riley's house, who was the host of the party in the pilot episode. But I'm like, oh, this is almost like a very similar kind of fool around circle to the pilot episode. But we see, cut in between, seeing Luce at the party and Riley thinking back to them getting together, and Delilah learning about Cooper, knowing about what happened to the baby. And we're cutting in between all these different reveals and all these truths. We go to Chester, who's at this point, he's upset. He has his heart broken. He's kind of embarrassing himself. He's drinking, he's smoking, he's wilding out at the party. We see Delilah confronts Naomi and tells her about Cooper liking her, and we see that she's talking to Jay, and it's just like all this chaos going around with all these characters. While all this is going on, like I said, I'm like, this is so well put together, because you have all these different characters, all these different storylines going on at once, and how they choreograph the shots and how they pin to this character and that character. I thought it was really well executed, very similarly to the pilot episode. We'll cut back to Luce and Riley finally having a discussion about that night, and it comes out that, and I even said, I'm like, I don't know if Luce is really into Greta, or is she just kind of like getting close to Greta to get closer to Riley in a weird kind of sick way. But she tells her that she doesn't like Greta, that she actually likes Riley, which I'm like, we all kind of saw that coming. But obviously Riley is just like, wait, what? I thought you were into Greta. Very instant moment there. But we cut back to Mark and Megan at their dinner, and Megan doesn't want to be there. This is an awkward conversation they bring up again. Not only is their son pretending to be in a relationship, but they're essentially pretending to be in a happy marriage, which again speaks to my theory that Mark, going back to the end of this episode, taking that break because he really wants to discover who he is as a person. So she breaks up has their dinner date. She just wants to go and protect her kids and blames it on wanting to know what's going on with her kids. But Megan tells Nate, she finally calls Nate, and she admits to her knowing the truth. Even though she didn't have that truth chocolate, she tells him, we're going to just be honest with each other moving forward, which is interesting she says that, because she didn't tell the kids what her husband just told her about breaking up. But nonetheless, she tells Nate that she knows the truth, and they're going to be honest with each other moving forward. As we see Luce bump into Nate, we cut to Luce and Riley, and we go back into a situation where Riley told Megan the situation with Nate. So the truth comes out about that reveal, and obviously Nate's upset with his best friend Riley and not telling him the truth of her telling Nate's mom what actually went down. Going to another fight, we see Ariana and Naomi get into a bit of a fight here, as Chester at this point, like I said, is wilding out. He jumps in the pool. Nate saves him. They go into the exact same room that we saw Nate hooking up with Naomi's boyfriend at the time, and things kind of spice up. We see Nate get into the shower. I should say we see Chester get in the shower, and they kind of have that eye contact, but that's interrupted by Cooper coming in looking for Delilah. And again, it's just like that sexual tension in between those two characters. But we have Delilah having this talk with Cooper. She tells him she feels like they're not right for each other, but she ultimately kisses him, which alludes to them maybe having a thing, or maybe there's a new triangle between Jay, Delilah, and Cooper. Even though I don't think Jay, who by the way wasn't really that integral in this season or this particular part of the show, but I don't know if he has an attraction towards Delilah, but we'll see what comes with all that. But Going back to Nate and Chester as they appear to be about to kiss. But Chester is stopped by Nate because he says, do you really want to do this? Or is it just because you're drunk? You just got broken up. I'm just a rebound for you. So kudos to Nate, man, because he's sticking up for himself. He's in love with Chester, but it's cool to see the character finally kind of speak up for himself. His mom dominates the conversation, dominates the relationship. His sister dominates their relationship. So it's nice to see Nate kind of step up for himself. And even though he wants to kiss Chester, and like I said, I still think they're going to end up being like an actual couple by the beginning of next season, or inevitably by next season. But it's really cool to see him kind of step up for himself for the first time in a long time. Cut to Riley. She goes into her mom's playroom because there's kids in there destroying her mom's stuff. She freaks out, throws stuff around. Greta comes in, hugs her, tells her she's sorry for not being a good friend, but Riley says, no, I should have been a friend. I should have been there more. And we see Greta admits to not only liking Riley, but she tells Riley she loves her, and Riley reciprocates that. But she does tell Riley, though, that she doesn't, I guess she's not that type of person that's chose emotions. She says she doesn't want to kiss her and stuff like that. So it's just like an interesting dynamic with loving someone, but not having that type of love where it's just sexual love. So it'll be interesting to see how that relationship kind of plays out as Riley is about to tell her the truth about hooking up with Luce. That's unfortunately interrupted because we have Delilah, who finally tells the whole party that she's the Panda Express girl that no one seems to care about, but at least she's owning her truth, which again, this whole episode is about truth, and she tells and she confesses to everyone at the party so she can kind of let that off her chest. Wrap up the episode with Naomi and Nate being picked up by their parents, and as soon as before they actually walk into the car, we see Mark tell Megan that he wants to take a break. Complete silence in the car. We even see Nate looking off and seeing Chester, who's by himself at this point, which we'll talk about Chester here in a second. But going back to that car scene, I'm surprised Megan didn't tell the truth. She said she's going to tell the kids everything. And I imagine if we do get a season 2, it'll probably pick up right in that car at some point. And she might tell the kids that, hey, kids, we're taking a break. And then we might see Mark tell his kids why they're taking a break and might express his true feelings. But we'll see if we do get a season 2 what that whole dynamic of the family looks like. But going back to our main character, Chester, who, again, beginning of the show shows him, this nice, happy-going, life of the party type of character, but he's by himself a lot. Well, he's by himself yet again. He ultimately calls Sam, who I talked about in the beginning of this show or this review for part 2. I don't know how integral Sam's going to play into the show. He plays a big part in this finale because he's ultimately someone that Chester can call upon, and they don't really talk that much. They're in silence for most of the phone call conversation, but it's nice to have, even though it's not platonic and it's obviously an adult and a child, and Chester apologizes to Sam about his behavior, but it's nice to have someone to rely on and have someone to lean on during this dark time. They eventually hang up the phone, and we hear some footsteps coming up to Chester. Chester turns around and says, "It's you." End of the first season, the finale. And now, who is It's You? Obviously, we can allude to 2 characters. Obviously, we're thinking Bo, or we're thinking Nate, or it could be Sam. This whole time, maybe Sam was looking for him and he finally finds him. And nothing romantically, but just someone being there for the kid. It could be Riley. But again, I bet, and this is if you guys watch Love, Victor season 2, this was a very kind of cliffhanger of an episode for the season finale. But I am safe to assume, if I were to put money on it, I think that it is Nate that is there at the rooftop. Now, the only person that I think knows where Chester goes is Jay, because we remember Jay was the one that was hanging out there on the rooftop with him. But I would imagine that Nate probably knows where he goes, because Riley and Chester are close friends. They probably went up there one time. But I think that person that Chester was referring to is Nate. I could be wrong, obviously. Could be Bo. Could be another character in its entirety. But let me know who you all think is on that rooftop with Chester. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the recap. Like I said, in all these weeks' reviews, I'm a big fan of this show. It scratched that Euphoria itch for me. It's not as refined and not as, detailed and not as good as Euphoria, but I still like these characters. I love the mixture of the dramedy elements. I'm really enjoying these characters. I love this story of coming of age, discovering who you are as a person, not having norms be defining who you are as a person. The sexuality that the show tackles, represent the LGBTQ community community is so great in the show to me. I know some people aren't fans of the show. As a straight man, obviously I can't relate to all of the stories that go on the show in regards to coming out and what's that's like for someone, but I still think the show handles it in a pretty good way, because I've seen some other LGBTQ shows and movies that just to me seem to be lacking the conversation, but I think the show has a good conversation, even though it can be chaotic at times. It may be a little bit underdeveloped and rushed at points, but I still enjoy this show, and I'm really excited to see what they do with a season 2, which I would imagine, I don't think the show is doing crazy numbers, but I think there's enough people that watch it that would warrant a season 2 to wrap up, you know, to get a resolution to some of these storylines that the show obviously has given us. So I enjoy it, and I would welcome a season 2, and I would love to know what you would like to see in a season 2. Let me know in the comments. Again, for everyone that watched all 16 episode reviews that I've done, I appreciate you all. Obviously, I'm still going to have many TV show reviews coming for you, more movie reviews, live discussions, all the fun things we do on this very channel. But again, I appreciate every single one of you that have watched these reviews for Generation on this channel. As always, if you haven't already, make sure you like the video, share the video. I appreciate you sticking around to the very end of this video. So again, hit the bell. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Hope you all are staying safe. Hope you enjoyed this review, and we'll see you in the next video.